All right, Bulls and Bears, we're back with another dose. We've got a lot of economic, financial news to get caught up on today. Where are we at in this economy? Where are we headed? What's going to happen before the end of 2024? Well, on some business news, we've got SpaceX leaving California. We're going to talk about that. California finding more and more ways to encourage businesses to leave the state. California's in big trouble. We're going to talk about the budget here in California, the companies that are leaving, including a very big, well-known company, SpaceX. That's going to be pretty massive. We've got a major housing correction going on in Austin, Texas. That includes the greater Austin area, Round Rock, San Marcos, and some significant price declines over there. I'm going to talk about what's behind that. A lot of other news to get caught up on here today as well. Let's go ahead and get right into it here. First of all, Musk leaving California because of a school policy implemented by the governor here, Newsom. So it's not just the taxes are cheaper elsewhere out of California. Now companies are leaving, in this case SpaceX, because of the policies directly from the governor here. Now, how big is SpaceX? It's massive. Let me just give you a breakdown on it here. SpaceX, Space Exploration Company, headquartered in Hawthorne, California, was founded in 2002. It also has the Starlink subsidiary, which is the largest ever satellite constellation, comprised more than 6,000 small satellites in orbit. The company also developed a super heavy lift launch system for interplanetary and orbital spaceflight. So this company is massive as far as what they do. As far as the number of employees, it's not a small player. It's over 13,000 employees as of this update that I'm reading here today. So why are they leaving? Well, the school policies say that schools aren't required or are actually not even supposed to tell the parents when their kids want to change their gender, right? So Elon Musk didn't like that, but not just that. I mean, even if it weren't for that, I mean, the corporate tax rate here in California, what, 8.84%, Texas does not have corporate income tax. So there's another reason too. Texas does, however, have a franchise tax. In some cases, it's usually less than 1%. But you can see that California is in big trouble. Let's talk about the California budget here. And this budget deficit here in California is pretty massive. You would think with all the tourism, all the things that California has for people to come and visit, you would see massive surpluses, but no, it's close to a $27 billion deficit. And that's as of a AP News report that came out just in May of this year. So California probably going to be raising their taxes on people like me. People like me are not moving out yet because I have a lot of family here still. I've got elderly parents out here, taking care of them. Kids are in schools, right? So once you get a family and kind of get this web of relations, it's not easy to just pick up and move. Ultimately, though, I mean, how are people going to continue to afford living here? Now, I happen to be an investor, and I've been doing that for a long time. That gives me an edge, so I'm able to stay here. Maybe easier for me more than some other people. I've got a lot of friends that I lost, though, to other states here just over the past few years, especially since 2020. It really picked up the number of people that I knew personally leaving the state. And now, of course, more businesses. Now, the latest is SpaceX. Let's talk about the housing correction going on in Texas. In this case, we're going to focus on Austin, Texas. And we know that the housing bubble, way beyond what it was in 2008, and this is nationwide. But we are seeing some corrections here. What's going on in San Marcos, Austin area here? We're seeing prices down 6.3% year over year, putting the median sale price now at about 450,000. Wow, it's still pretty high for Texas. And the active listings are up about 26% year over year. So we see in this case an increase of 26% in listings equals about a 6% price drop. Now, I think prices are going to continue to drop. Listings are going to continue to go up because the buyers are just not available. All right, when you look at the interest rates, when you look at the lack of a down payment that most people have, and pretty soon it's going to be people are going to have dinged up credit scores from all these late credit card payments that are starting to mount, late car payments that are starting to mount. So the higher these late payments get in all these different categories that we look at, the pool of potential home buyers is going to continue to shrink and shrink and shrink. Now we'll have to see how big investors come in and prop this thing up or not. But right now prices are coming down pretty fast. Also, the average days on the market is up to 65 days. That's up 2 days year over year. Not a huge increase, but when you look at the list to closing price, homes are selling at 94.6% of the listing price. So below the listing price in most cases, right? So that's a sign of a buyer's market starting to emerge. Now prices are still very elevated, but you get the picture. You know, there is a start of a housing correction going on there in Austin, Texas. And something that I just thought of, this ties in with our story that we opened with. A lot of businesses actually went to Austin, Texas from California. A lot of even entertainers like Joe Rogan. He took his studio out there, his podcast studio, left California. He was in the LA area. Now he's in Austin. I heard he opened up a comedy club out there, stuff like that. I haven't been to Austin in a very long time. But just another example of companies that are leaving, individuals and companies both leaving California, going to Texas. But the migration now into Texas dwindling, right? And home prices starting to come down as a result. I'm sure there's a lot of other people, famous people that have left California for Texas, maybe even Austin. If you know some of them, please let us know down in comments. I just can't think of any other ones right now off the top of my head. All right, transitioning a little bit here, but still on the topic of real estate. Let's talk about the shrinking home sizes. We have, of course, affordability problems here, the housing bubble going on, massive home price increases over the past few years, or the past 14 years, really, ever since the bottom in 2009, 2010. Prices have been climbing, but really, especially since 2020. Well, we have, of course, people not being able to afford homes. Smaller home sizes are now being built, and it's shrinking here. So construction spending has soared over the past few years, of course. Um, the median size for a new family home sold in 2023 was 2,286 square feet, down from 2,328 square feet in 2022. And it looks like when the 2024 numbers come out, it's going to be even a bigger decline into smaller homes that people want. Not just they want them, but they can't afford them, even if they even if they didn't want them. And we have the emergence of more tiny home villages like this one over in Texas. I think we reported on this maybe last year at some point. Tiny home villages and people not starting families is becoming more common because they know they probably won't have a place big enough for a family. A lot more families hunkered down into small apartments now. But take a look at some of these homes here as we stroll through this village here. Tiny home for sale. I think when I first reported on this, maybe it was 2022, they were going for right around $100,000, but I think prices have went up even more since then. $100,000 for a tiny home. Wow, not much of a yard, not much space, not many trees, new community. So pretty pretty bare place there. Huh. People look happy, you know. Looks like maybe just older, retired, single people. Maybe people have kids there. And we have this person here showing us the inside of her tiny home. Not bad for a single person. Step up from a van or a trailer life, that's for sure. All right, transitioning a little bit here. Some other news I wanted to get into today. Now, one of the common things that we talk about here in this channel is how debt issuance, aka credit issued from the banks, is the basically underpinning of what's looked at as economic growth. When people continue to go further into debt, as long as that can go on, the economy is going to have the appearance of growth. But what happens when people start to get maxed out on their credit cards, like close to 1 in 5 people are right now? Banks typically start pulling back on the credit limits. They make it harder to get loans. We're not really seeing that yet. And I think that's because 2024 is a very important year to keep the economy looking like it's growing for obvious reasons, right? But here's an article here that kind of points out what's going on here. Consumer credit still rose by $11.3 billion. Remember, in order for there to be a big economic downturn, credit has to contract. It has to be harder for people to borrow money, and it has to be difficult for most people to go further into debt. Right now, that's not happening, so you're likely not going to see some credit induced downturn like we had in 2008. That was mostly a credit induced downturn, starting off with the housing market going bust, and then banks responded by really making it difficult to get a loan. Of course, a couple years later, the banks were rescued and the lending resumed at rock bottom interest rates. We all know the history of that. But 6.3% annual increase in credit cards, right? And remember, it's not just the spending. In order to spend, you have to have an increase in the credit limits, especially when a lot of people start to get maxed out here. But here's some statistics out of here that I wanted to point out here. 65% people are struggling, and this was information put out by Payments here. More than 60% of consumers earning below $50,000 have less than $500 available for medical emergencies. And it says here, highlighting the critical role of credit as a financial lifeline. I've always said here that once the credit cards get cut off, or not even cut off, once the limits stop increasing, once most credit card companies and banks start either keeping the credit limits the same or decreasing the credit limits, it doesn't even have to get cut off. It just has to stop increasing. That enough, or that alone would be enough to trigger the economic downturn. So I think the banks have been told that they better keep loaning out money. And of course, the banks know they get the get out of jail free card, especially the big banks. So they're going to keep on letting people go further into debt. That's the way I see it, unless we see something massive that comes in and throws a monkey wrench in this entire system of loaning out money in this entire banking system. Right? We know the politicians, the bankers, all together. Politicians get rich off of allowing this type of thing to happen because they pass the laws, and the regulators, they're in on it. They're allowing banks to continue to loan out money, even though banks are big time underwater, especially with the commercial real estate, right? So we know this is all a scheme to keep this illusion of economic growth going. Let's talk about something else here that we update on every once in a while here, and that's the number of people cutting cable. When people get in a lot of debt, they start cutting back on certain things. You may not really notice it if you're out shopping or at the stadium. People are still going to concerts. People are still going to sporting events, but they are cutting back on the cable TV. Earlier this year, we reported a big downshift in people, or big uptick rather, in people cutting their cable TV. And one of the biggest apps or channels, whatever you want to call it, in this case is Stars. Stars lost over 800,000 subscribers just in 2024. I believe they also lost in 2023. I actually haven't went through this article yet. Sometimes I read the articles for the first time on air. Other times I screen them out. It depends on how much time they have. So a lot of times I'm just as surprised as you when we go through some of this information. Stars lost 840,000, almost 841,000 paid subscribers between December and May of this year. Wow. So not even a full 6 months, over 800,000. So they're going to be close to losing 2 million subscribers this year if this pace continues. Also, Apple TV Plus has lost over 528,000 paid subscribers so far this year. Again, these numbers are not even counting halfway through the year yet. Hulu close behind with a loss of 504,000 subscribers. Disney Plus also lost subscribers this year, 295,000, also not even counting halfway through the year. So why are so many of these channels or so many of these streaming apps losing subscribers? Is it because the economy is doing great and the consumer is strong and resilient, like we're being told? I think maybe what you think about that. Let me know what you think about that down in comments. And we put this out at the beginning of the year about how just cable in general, cable TV subscribers were dropping. They're cutting the cable. It was reported here earlier this year that just in the third quarter of last year, 900,000 people cut off not just an app like we talked about a minute ago, but their entire cable TV subscription. 900,000 just in the third quarter, and that was the worst ever quarter for the industry. Of course, we're going to see what happens here, and it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out here in 2024 with everything that's happening right now. Cost of living still not really coming down unless you're talking about some cities in Texas where rents are dropping, home prices are dropping. But overall, it's still a big struggle for people. So we're going to see how this plays out, folks. Let me know what you think about all this. SpaceX leaving California. Californians are going to be left to pick up the slack, like me, unable to move out at this point. I do love the weather here. San Diego weather, it's amazing, and it's going to be heartbreaking to have to leave the state. But at some point, you got to draw the line that you can't just stay with an endless cost of living, right? Unless I hit the jackpot in some other way. I'm doing pretty good trading right now. A couple short positions, had some good days today. I'm up pretty significantly today on my. I say they're shorts. I'm not really shorting them, but I am making money if the stocks go down. The two that I'm in right now, the two that I'm betting against or betting that the stocks go down, we've got Rivian and Nvidia. So Nvidia, I'm actually underwater, but I caught up some ground today. Um, Rivian, I'm actually up on that a pretty good chunk here. So we're going to keep you updated on those trades as well because we want to try to benefit from things that we see happening right now, these wild stock runs and stock prices. And I wouldn't short the entire indices at this point. I wouldn't short the Dow Jones or the S&P, but there are certain stocks that just go up way too far too fast that I try to look out for, try to make a little money off of some of this madness, right? So let me know what you think about all this, folks. Please make sure you subscribe. Come back for more updates. As always, big love. Keep stacking. Bye for now. Peace.